Alright, this is going to be our Spider-Man 2 review. We're continuing on for our reviews, getting you guys ready for Spider-Man Homecoming. It's coming out July 7th, starring Tom Holland. This film is still... I think it's one of the greatest comic book films ever still. I don't know if you feel that way, but I still...
Maybe.
That's personally how I feel. What I love about this film so much is the low and dark places that it takes Peter Parker into, and it's just, if you feel so much more vulnerability for this character, and I love that. I love how he's got to deal with so many issues around, from Harry wanting to find hating on him because he's defending Spider-Man, from Mary Jane going out with other guys now, and he's got to pay bills. He's like, it's not all sunshine and rays being Spider-Man, and I love that this film touches upon that.
You definitely see him like questioning whether he wants to even be Spider-Man anymore. Like he quits for a while. It was cool to see him like questioning whether he wants to be Spider-Man anymore.
I love how he kept that love bottled up inside that he felt for Mary Jane, and it was making him sick to the point that's why he was losing his superpowers. And kind of we got that mentioned in the film earlier by Otto Octavius, where he says to him, if you keep something like love bottled up inside, it's going to make you sick. And it did. That's why he kept on losing his superpowers. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is kind of with the doctor that he sees and just tells him, maybe you're not supposed to be Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, that's probably kind of when he hangs it up.
Which is from the comic books, by the way, too, which we'll get into with our Easter eggs and references and all that stuff. But also, too, we got to mention another thing that I really loved upon this film, especially the Aunt May and Peter Parker scenes. Those were so good in this movie. We had such a menacing and incredible villain.
Oh, yeah.
But before he becomes that, again, kind of like in the first movie, I gotta say, some of my favorite scenes in this movie are between Alfred Molina and Tobey Maguire, though, when they're first getting to know each other. I love those moments. Those are some great moments. I love this boy. Those are some good moments. Like, we're getting a connection with these characters. Like, they think a lot. They're both scientists. They get along with each other, and you're seeing like, wow, I like this guy. I don't want to see him turn into a villain.
And Alfred Molina is such a great actor.
He's
fantastic. He really sells it. I mean, he has a couple cheesy lines, but that's not really his fault. But I mean, you feel for him so much in the beginning, but then he's very menacing by the end of the movie. Like, I love Willem Dafoe in the first movie, but I still think Doc Ock is a better villain than Green Goblin.
I agree. And also, too, on top of that, obviously we know Spider-Man's going to win, but in the moment when you're watching the film, you feel a lot of danger when Spider-Man is fighting Doc Ock and these four tentacles. Like, these things, especially the scene that sets the tone for how menacing and crazy in the hospital when they're trying to take it off, like, and he just...
That scene is very Evil Dead to me for some reason. It's super cheesy, but
it's a horror kind of
thing. It is, but I, couldn't help but laugh at it. I thought I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. Not one of my favorite scenes of the movie.
I understand what you're saying, but for me, the reason why I felt it was scary and menacing, the woman scratching her nails, the guys are cutting the chain. it felt meaningful. It was scary for me in the moment, but
maybe when I get scared more when I was 15. But
I get scared more easily, guys. I'm easily scared.
I don't know. I thought it had a cheesy vibe without trying to be cheesy. But anyways,
I didn't feel that, but I felt okay.
No, I did like the way that the tentacles had kind of mind of their own.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
They were the things that were making him evil, so I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, and just to continue on what you're saying, I love, like you said, they gave them a personality, but they all felt like they were a character, and all four of them, they all felt like they had a personality trait of their own, and they were controlling him because the inhibitor chip had been destroyed, so I thought that was really cool, and I liked how it made sense in the story of why he was now, turning evil, because obviously the loss of your favorite line. Well, I know it's going to be on your favorite quote for this. But the loss of his wife, of course, and then also the inhibitor chip is destroyed, so now they're controlling him. So, it makes total sense in the story on what's going on. So, again, I love those things. I love how menacing and scary they felt, especially in the scenes where him and Spider-Man are fighting. You really feel a sense of danger for Spider-Man, which is what you want to feel for the character, so that when he does win and survive, it's more impactful. I thought Tobey Maguire gave an even better performance in this film than the first one.
He's coming to his own in the role.
Yeah, that, and also, again, as I mentioned earlier in this review, talking about how he's going to the darkest and lowest places that this character can possibly go to, you are really seeing not only it happen in front of you, but the emotions that are conveyed on his face, seeing what he's going through, you really feel for it, yes, we're all envious that he has Spider-Man powers. Like, I wish I had that too, but I'm like, I don't wish I had the situations that he was currently in. Like,
well, he even says, he even says on the phone when he's leaving the message for Mary Jane, like, it's funny, like, I can't even make an 8 p.m., showtime or whatever, just saying how much it's really affecting his life without, he can't tell her, so.
Yeah, no.
It's really hitting him hard.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I love the conveying of facial expressions, and then seeing, like, that moment too when he's mentioning it to the machine, knowing that the call has kind of already ended, but like I like those moments. And then like a lot of times when he's like walking his bike afterwards and you see he's kind of like feels defeated, and like you feel like, wow, you don't know if he wants to keep going on another day. Like it's just such a great and powerful performance in my opinion. So I thought he did an amazing job.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the theme of this whole movie, is him like, life catching up to him and him having to balance being Spider-Man and the rest of his life, and he can't really do that, and how it's like affecting him so much. And Tobey definitely does a good job of conveying that.
Absolutely. And just also saying on top of that, just what I loved about the theme of this movie is about you have to make a choice. Like, do you want to be Spider-Man or do you want to be with me? You cannot have both. I mean, obviously at the end of the film we get to see it gets to be crossed, but before that happens, he's got to make that decision because he's having problems making that decision. That's what causes him to get sick and lose his powers and why not do it.
Well, it ties into the quote of the first movie: with great power comes great responsibility. So you have to have the responsibility to do all that.
Definitely. We kind of already touched upon Alfred Molina. We said he's amazing. He's menacing. He's great earlier on in the film when they're just getting to know each other. They're getting that connection as characters. So I loved him. He's probably my favorite villain of all three of the Raimi trilogy. We got to talk about Rosemary Harris. We didn't really talk about her too much in the first movie.
No.
I did enjoy her a lot in the first film. She's a lot more...
she has more of a role in this one.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And also the scenes between her and Peter, obviously, because of what has happened in the first movie between Uncle Ben, of course. There's a lot more that they touch upon from the first film. We get to learn about what happened with... Uncle Ben. He tells her the truth. He was hiding that inside of him the whole time, and again, this is good drama right here. And I loved a lot of the reactions that Rosemary Harris, when Peter first when he told her about what happened with Uncle Ben, she pulls away and then walks. That's a very human reaction.
Yeah.
If she would have said, "Come here, Peter, thank you for telling me," I would have felt that would have been weird.
Well, she does do that later on.
Yeah,
once
later
she goes back,
makes
which
sense.
Is cool too. And then she kind of is the one who talks Peter back into.
She knows he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think so, because there's
does.
that bank scene where he runs away and then Spider-Man
She never
comes.
says anything to him about it. So
and then she kind of talks him into getting back in, into the role.
The scenes between her and Peter, they're very important. They're very emotional, and they make a lot of sense, and they're story driven as well as character driven, of course, too, because he does need to get back into action. She's talking back into it after he saved her. This city needs you, especially after he saw what he's gonna see what happens later with that fire scene where he saves the girl and then finds out, poor little soul's, lost her life.
On the 4th floor, yeah.
And that's because he wants to be with Mary Jane. Someone suffered, and he understands he can't do that anymore. So their scenes are so important in this film, and I loved their chemistry too. They really, really feel like an aunt and a nephew, those scenes with that connection between them. I love it. Just really quick, we touched upon it a lot in our Spider-Man 1 review. The greatest casting ever in comic book history for me personally is J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, and in this film, he's got an even bigger role, and he is so funny. Again, he keeps firing and unfiring Peter, and then the way he bosses him around. Parker, did you hear me? I called you twice. I love the way he talks. He's just so funny. He's just literally a carbon copy of what he would be in the comic book. And J.K. Simmons is amazing. Of course, he's now Commissioner Gordon. We've of course got to talk about the music in this film. It's by Danny Elfman. Now, Danny Elfman and Sam Raimi, I believe they had a lot of clashing on set or in the music booth or wherever they talked amongst themselves. There was a lot of arguing, and he actually did not return for Spider-Man 3, which was a big problem for me in that film. It was Christopher Young, and they reunited, I guess, on The Great Oz in 2013, so that was really cool that they made up. But his music score in this, again, the first one is outstanding. This one, it's even better. There's so many more scenes where the drama is more drawn out with some of his music. The ones that have specifically hit me the hardest, obviously his action music is anytime his music's on in general, it's amazing, especially the action scenes. But the two biggest dramatic moments for me that still impact me so much with his music, the moment where Mary Jane finds out that Peter Parker, it's truly confirmed, that music and the facial reaction by perfectly displayed by Kirsten Dunst in that moment. Such a perfect reaction to finding out Peter was Spider-Man. Also the music when he decides, yes, I have to be Spider-Man, I have to let Mary Jane go, and he puts on the mask as she's hugging John Jameson, and then he flies back off into the night. I love that music beat. It's so good, and I'm so excited that Danny Elfman is now the composer for the new for Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon's upcoming Justice League movie in November of 2017. So he's back in the superhero genre. Of course, did the Hulk, and he did the Tim Burton Batman. So I love his score in the first two movies, and even more so in this one.
Yeah, the humor is really great in this movie too. Yeah. Just there's so many moments like. Every character that I feel like has their moment, like when Peter's at that gala or whatever, and he keeps trying to get a drink, and he finally gets one, but it's empty. Or when J.K. Simmons is like, or what's it? Peter's trying to give him a picture, and he's trying to give him a picture of Spider-Man. He's like, okay, I'll give you 100, and he's like, no, 300. He's like, that's outrageous. What? That's outrageous. Done. That's so good.
So funny. He's like, no, and then also he's like, could you pay me this?
The laugh.
Pay you for what? Standing there?
Well, another one of my favorites too is when the girl from like the guy who's always trying to get the rent comes in, and she's like, oh, sorry, I should have knocked, and then she leaves and then knocks again like right away.
Yeah, no, I'd say some of the humor you touched upon a lot of funny moments. I'd say a lot of the humor too is on moments where you don't need to hear someone talking to laugh, like you talked about with Tom McGuire with the empty glass. You see the guy about to eat a pizza that because Peter and then he pulls it away, like just funny moments like that. I love that kind of stuff. Like, again, the humor is really funny. Anytime J. Jonah Jameson opens his mouth,
of course,
I'm just dying laughing. Oh, I think my favorite, like the funniest line in the movie for me is when Mary Jane has stood up John Jameson, and J. Jonah says to his wife, "Call Deborah, the caterer. Tell her not to open the caviar."
Save that money.
Yeah, but just like it's just so funny. It's so hysterical.
And I think
it's good.
I think the humor really just makes the more dramatic and intense moments like. You know, it makes them have more dynamic because when you're laughing and then it makes the lows lower too. So.
I completely agree with you. Also, too, it makes the characters more interesting. When we're laughing along with them and finding their personalities a lot more interesting and that they do have some humor, it makes us more drawn into the characters because who doesn't like people who can make them laugh, right?
Of course.
Yeah, so, I mean, I liked how they really touched upon the humor a lot more in this film, so that was great. We got to, of course, talk about the action. The action sequences. I mean, look, the action between the Goblin and Spider-Man was pretty... I'm not going to say great. I'm just going to go pretty good to solid, as Jason just said in the first movie. It's incredible in this. Good. When him and Doc are fighting, the first fight obviously is in the bank. That was a great, and they're on the building, of course. By the way, just so everyone knows, I'm reviewing the Spider-Man, the 2.1 version. It's got like 11, 12 extra minutes of footage. So if you haven't seen that, watch that version. It's got some extra fight scenes between them, or not scenes, but more extended, longer fight scenes that they're in. And it's great. Like, also we got that train scene.
Yeah.
And when they're on the tower, that is amazing. I love that entire sequence. It is so much fun. It is so cool. And to watch them just going at it, like, and to see how much danger that Spider-Man's in, and to see them moving like Spider-Man's moving like a spider, he's moving like an octopus. It's just such a cool fight.
Yeah, really well done fights. And they definitely improved upon the CGI a lot in this movie from the first one, and it definitely paid off.
Definitely. No, when Spider-Man is swinging through the city in this one, like, I truly feel like I'm swinging with the character.
Yeah, they have more of like a dipping motion.
The way the camera is following him, and it looks like I'd say my favorite shot of the entire movie of him swinging, obviously the last sequence is incredible where he's swinging into the day with the helicopters after Mary Jane is Professor Love and they're together. The sequence where he's chasing the two robbers when he's trying to get to Mary Jane's plane, he goes through the truck.
Yeah.
I love that shot. Sick. That was the sickest, coolest shot I've ever seen in a Spider-Man film ever.
That was cool.
Even in 2017, I go, that shot is not good. That's an incredibly amazing shot that still stands the test of time today. Yeah. And the CGI in this film, we'll get into the nitpicks of that, but some of the times when they are fighting, you can completely tell when Alfred Molina's face is CGI. It's 2004. I get it. It's still going to be in my nitpicks and flaws when we get there in a sec. But again, the fights in this movie, the CGI, the swinging, him running on walls, him crawling, really cool stuff, really good, and really impactful too and meaningful in terms of in the story, because when he is swinging and losing his powers, like, it's a big part of the film. When he's trying to fight Doc Ock and his web shooter's not working, it's part of the story. It's not just action to be action. It's like a big part of what's going on in the story. So I thought they touched upon it in a good way. All right, so we're going to get into our favorite quote of the film. Mine, I'm kind of butchering the line a little bit, but Peter Parker I'm saying it the right way for Peter Parker. It's the same line from Peter and Aunt May. It's sometimes to do the right thing, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams. It kind of steadies back a little bit to the with great power comes great responsibility. Like, again, it's about choices. You have to do what's right for humanity, and that's what Dr. Octavius touched upon in the film earlier. He said it's a privilege, like, to have a mind, and you have to do it for the good of humanity. And I just thought that line, like, it really hits you in a way from when she's getting him back as Spider-Man, and when Peter is trying to appeal to Dr. Octavius's humanity with that line. So it's a very impactful line for me.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really thinking of quotes, but just off the top of my head, I think there's the one line that Dr. Connors tells Doc Ock. I mean, he's just like, you're brilliant, but you're lazy. And I kind of think it's funny because it's very ironic because he's obviously not lazy, but it kind of just plays into the theme of this movie where, like, everyone thinks that Peter Parker is just unreliable and late all the time, but he's really, busting his ass as Spider-Man. So,
and just to say what you just said about that line, a great pick, by the way, brilliant but lazy. I love how they harpen back to that line later on in the film where Dr. Octavius,
Peter.
When he finds out Spider-Man is Peter, he looks at him and says, brilliant but lazy. So I like that. Like, this film, these films for the most part, which we'll get into Spider-Man 3 has a lot of issues of, they do a good job with continuity and keeping up with remembering things and referencing things from the other films. So I like that they touched upon that there too. We're going to touch upon some of the flaws and issues that we have. One of them was something you kind of harped upon earlier. It made for an amazing action sequence. Watching Peter grab Mary Jane through the air, that is so sick. I'm glad they kept it in there. From a story perspective, it is a major plot hole because Dr. Octavius needed Peter Parker to tell him what he knew. And if you throw a car at someone, he can't really tell you that he's Spider-Man. But again, for the action sequence in the film, I forgave it, and because I'm enjoying the film so much at this point, you just go, you know what, it's still going to be a nitpick and a flaw in the film.
And especially because his back is turned also. It's not like he's looking at it. Like, Mary Jane is the one who's looking towards that direction. So.
And Harry did say to him earlier, don't hurt Peter.
Well, he said it on the way down, so maybe he didn't hear it, but still.
No, and also,
if you kill Peter, you can't tell you where Spider-Man is.
I agree, and I guess my other defense for Doc Ock is he's crazy. He's just not thinking in the moment. But you're right; it was not very, well thought out. I mentioned a little bit earlier during some of the fight sequences. Again, I know it's 2004, but it's 2017, so I'm just calling it like it is. Some of the CGI is really noticeable, and especially on Alfred Molina's face. If you're watching the great fight sequence between them on the train sequence and right when they're up in the tower, you can really tell a lot of times on the face when it's CGI and when it's not. Also, just getting into that same train sequence, which is one of the greatest action sequences in the film, of course, we see that Dr. Octavius falls at, I'd say, 180 stories from that building. I know that thing offers him protection. I get it. But he's still a regular human being, right? Like, how can he fall that far and just be totally, perfectly fine? Again, I know it offers him some protection, but he fucking landed hard ass on that train, like, and Spider-Man, he's got superpowers. Like, it makes sense how he could survive, falling down. Maybe Spider-Man fell first, and that's how Doc Ock. Maybe the back of it fell first.
Continuity.
But it just felt like, again, I just didn't feel like he's a superpowered being that could take the collision of that of falling 100 stories or whatnot. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but
I don't know. And I just feel like overall, there's a few kind of cheesy moments where it's not really the intention is to be cheesy, but it kind of just is.
The inhibitor chip.
But anyway,
no!
There is one of those lines too. Not quite as bad as Darth Vader, but still not.
Hell no, as bad as that.
No,
it takes some real training to be worse than no. Yeah,
we finally got a decent one in Wonder Woman.
That was a good one.
It was solid.
Hey, are you saying Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story 2 is not decent?
It was okay.
Come on, man. Buzz Lightyear.
But that one was trying to be super
obviously,
cheesy.
Obviously.
So that
still works for me. It still works for me.
So,
all right. So just some Easter eggs we noticed. I'm sure there's many more. If there are, please put them down in the comments for us. But just on reviewing, this is what we saw. We of course get another great Stan Lee cameo. Not a great, but just a cool little one where he's I guess Doc Ock has Aunt May and the rocks are coming down from the building bricks, and he kind of like pulls someone out of the way. So he's being heroic. Stan Lee heroic moment. That was great. We see that the Russian landlord, Mr. Ditkovich. Steve Ditko is one of the creators, along with Stan Lee. for Spider-Man. We also see that violin woman playing the Spider-Man 7,
Yeah.
Spider-Man. So that was cool. Also, I believe when Spider-Man puts his costume in the trash and he walks away, that's I'm not sure which issue number it is, but it's from the Amazing Spider-Man comics where he actually does give up the suit and gives up being Spider-Man. So I like how they reference back, and that was a total Easter egg, and the way it's shot. I love how they really harpened on that image. It was really visually cool. So
also Tobey Maguire's brothers are
Yep.
on the train scene.
Yep.
So
that's right. That's a good trivia there. As I mentioned earlier in this review, this is still for me easily one of the best comic book movies ever. It's pretty well paced. It's very meaningful. It's got a lot of human depth and emotion. It's got great acting. It's got good chemistry between all the actors. The story is very good. It's very well directed by Sam Raimi. The music is fantastic by Danny Elfman. The cinematography on this film is really
Really
well,
good.
especially in
Yeah,
the action
very good.
sequence. The way they move around with Spy, really well done. As I said, the music by Danny Elfman is sensational. It just adds along to what's going on. By the way, I gotta say that artwork that they showed at the beginning of the film is so cool. I believe it was Alex Ross or whatever.
Yeah, it was
I think
really cool intro.
The dramatic moments in this are just outstandingly balanced with the amazingly organic humor in this film. I'm going big on Spider-Man 2 from 2004. I'm going 9.8 out of 10 for this film.
yeah, I'm definitely not going that big. This is definitely a great
You're lost.
movie. I don't know if it's one of the best comic movies of all time. Definitely top 50. No, I'm just kidding. Top 10, top 15 maybe. But no, higher than that too. I'm gonna give it an 8. I definitely like this movie a lot. It's probably the best. It's definitely the best Spider-Man movie that there is so far.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not after next month, but. I really like it. Alfred Molina, great villain. One of the better villains, I'll say, in a comic book movie. I'll definitely say that.
Absolutely.
But great acting again from all the people in the movie. Really good story. Really good themes on how he has to balance his life with being Spider-Man. Really shows that really well. And just a really fun movie to watch. I'm gonna give it an 8. And yeah. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments section, and if you like this video, you can hit the subscribe button.
See you guys next time.